Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is YOMA Ayin Beis. We begin at the last line of Daf Ayin Aleph Ayin Beis. Yesterday we discussed a brisa which described for us various bigdei kahuna worn by the Kehanim and their makeup, which material we used, how thick were those threads. The brisa told us me'il shneim asar. One of the bigdei kahuna, the me'il, was made using threads which were 12-ply threads. Minolan, how do we know that each thread consisted of 12 strands wound into one? The pasuk says, you meant to fashion the me'il using pure blue wool. Now, as Rashi tells us up on the top line, kalil also means gedil, braided together. If ein gedil pachas v'shnayim, at a minimum, it's referring to two threads wound together. So the thread used for the me'il was really a double thread, two braided together. How thick was each individual thread? We assume it was a 6-ply thread, just as your typical thread used for the bigdei kahuna. Continues the Gemara, v'yolav tchilas m'pareiches. We learned through a Gzeira Shava, it says tchilas here by me'il. It says tchilas by pareiches. Malahal and shisha, just as the threads used over there were 6-ply threads, 6 strands wound and spun into one thread. Akan shisha here as well was speaking about a 6-ply thread, and of course we used 2 of them braided together, kalil, gdil. So now we know the threads used for the me'il were actually 12-ply threads. V'neilus mishulav, very minor. Why do you go over to pareiches and learn from there that it's a 6-ply thread? Go over to the bottom of the me'il itself, mishulav, very minor. Those pomegranate-shaped ornaments hanging off the bottom of the me'il, and learn as follows: malahalam shmoina, just as over there they were 8-ply threads, thicker threads, as we learned yesterday. Avkan shmoina. Likewise, the typical threads used for the me'il itself were 8-ply threads as well. Not merely 6-ply, 8-ply. Done in kli mikli. We prefer learning the halacha of a kli, of a me'il, from another kli, from pareiches. Just as there it's 6, here it's 6. Ve'in done in kli, mitachshet kli, as opposed to learning the kli, the me'il, from the remaining which were merely of ornamental value, ornamental features hanging off the me'il. It's just a tachshet kli. It's a different type of thing. Now, just stop for a second. Tosfos Rashi asks, yesterday we referred to the pareiches as an oil. We said, well, let's not learn from pareiches. We're going to learn from choshen ve'efod, pertaining to a different topic. Why? Because pareiches is an oil. It's part of the structure. Unlike choshen ve'efod, which are kalim. And here the Gemara says, well, we prefer learning from the pareiches, which is a kli, like the me'il is, as opposed to the remaining of the me'il, which are only tachshite kli. So we're referring to the pareiches as a kli. Says the Tosfos Rashi, it's all relative. It's relative to the context at hand. It depends what we're comparing it to. So in contrast to the choshen ve'efod, which were true kalim, which were bigdei sharis, worn by the kohen, the pareiches is in a different category. It's classified as an oil because it's part of the structure. It's a hanging curtain, as opposed to our discussion here. We're saying that we prefer learning the me'il, which is a kli, meaning it's an independent entity, worn by the kohen gadol, from another independent entity, the pareiches, which we now call a kli, as opposed to the remaining on the bottom of the me'il, which weren't independent entities. They were simply add-ons to the me'il. Tachshite kli. They don't have the same significance as an independent entity as a kli itself. So that's why in this discussion, we say, well, we prefer learning from the pareiches, which is a kli, meaning it serves on its own. In fact, Taisha says it had a din of a kli as well because they would wrap the kalim within it when they traveled. In any case, we prefer learning the me'il, which is a kli on its own, from paroiches, which is a kli on its own, meaning it serves on its own as a separate entity, as opposed to learning from remaining, which are merely tachshite kalim. They're just ornamental features found on the me'il, and it's dissimilar to the me'il itself, which is an independent kli. So we prefer learning from the paroiches, just as there we had 6 ply threads, here as well. Adarabba, just the opposite, says the Gemara. Donan gufa megufa. Wouldn't you prefer learning the thickness of the threads used for the me'il itself from threads found in itself as well, i.e. the remaining found on the bottom? Gufa megufa. Isn't that a better comparison? Ve'en donan gufa me'alma, as opposed to learning the gufa me'il from an external source, paroiches. So perhaps we're meant to use 8 ply threads for the me'il itself. Now, since they're meant to be bound together, 2 of them braided together, you'll have a jumbo thread, which is going to be a 16 ply thread rather than a 12 ply thread, as the Brisa says. Answers the Gemara, I'll give you the teretz. Hainu darmina. That's why we said yesterday. We had an extra pasuk sheish. Lish'ar begodim shaloi nemer ben sheish. It's coming to tell you. Even when we have a beged that does not have the word sheish attached to it, it's still meant to have 6 ply threads. So the threads used for the me'il meant to be 6 ply threads, and 2 of them bound together gives you a 12 ply jumbo thread. The Brisa continued that the paroiches was esrim va'abo, and a very thick thread, a 24 ply thread. How's that? Very simple. Daled, you had 4 different minim, right? You had blue wool, purple wool, red wool, and linen. So 4 minim. Each one of those threads being a 6 ply thread. Daled the shita. 4 minim, each one having a 6 ply thread. Loidino leidino. There's no question. There's no discussion, of course. It's pashut. So you have 6 times 4 is 24. The Brisa continued and told us Choshen ve'ephod esrim v'shmoina. The Choshen ve'ephod were woven with very thick threads, 28 ply threads. How do we know that? What type of material did it consist of? Zahav, tcheles, vargamon, v'salashani, v'sheish mashzer. So you have the 4 types of material: blue, purple, red wool, and sheish mashzer, that's the linen. In addition to that, you have gold as well. Some strands of gold were inserted into those threads. So you have arba, 4 minim, 4 varieties, the 3 wool and the 1 linen, right? Blue, purple, red wool plus linen, 4 minim. And each one of those minim had a chut, right? Each thread consisted of 6 strands, right? That's standard. It's meant to be a 6 ply thread. So arba, the shita, 4 minim, each one having a thread which is 6, right? 6 ply thread gives you esrim arba, a total of 24 strands. In addition, you have the zav arba. You add 4 strands of gold to the mix, which gives you a total of ha'esrim v'tmanya, 28. Says the Gemara, why does gold only get 4? Ve'ema zav nami shisha. Perhaps gold should be equal to the other ones. 6 strands of gold, which gets you more than 28 in total. Amar Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amakro. V'kites psilim. You want to cut apart these gold strands. Psil would be 1, psilim referring to 2. As Rashi explains, v'kites psilim. You take the 2 strands, you cut them up further. You make from 2 into 4. Harei kan daled, for a total of 4 strands of gold. Added to the 24 strands of the various minim, for a total of 28. Rav Ashi Amar, here's another teretz. Amakra, la'asesh b'seichat chilis, u'b'seichar gomer. You meant to insert the strands of gold into the other types. Don't have a separate, independent gold thread there. You take a strand of gold and you wind it up. You spin it together with the other minim into the tchelis, into the argaman. If so, you can't propose there's going to be more than 4 strands of gold added. Why? What should we do? Navid arba, the tray. What would you suggest? To take 2 strands of gold and put 2 strands in each one of these 4 minim. 2 into the blue wool, 2 spun together with the purple wool, 2 into the red, and 2 into the linen. Ni'avad arba. Let's make those 4 minim, the tray with 2 strands of gold in each. Well, then you went over. Havalu tamanim. Now instead of only 6, you have 8. It can't be 8, as Taisus explains, because then there's no limit. Maybe 10, maybe 100, maybe 1,000,000. Once you're past 6, which is typical, which is standard, then there's no way to know how many you meant to have. So it can't be past 6. So what's the other option? Break it down unevenly. Ni'avid tray. Have 2 minim, the tray, which will feature 2 strands of gold in each. Take the blue, put 2 gold in there. Take the red, put 2 gold in there. And the remaining 2 minim, the purple and the linen, let's say, utray, and the other 2 minim, the chad, put 1 strand of gold in each. So you have 2, 4, 5, and 6. And you're okay now. The pasuk says, Vasisa ksiv. You're meant to make the various colors and various types of material. You make to make them all consistently the same thickness for all. Sheyu kolas yosef shabbos. So you can't say 2 strands in this and 1 on the other one. All colors, all types are meant to be made of the same type of thread, the same thickness, the same amount of ply, the same amount of strands. So the only thing you're left with is the option of 1 in each. 1 strand of gold into the blue wool, to the red, to the purple, and to the linen. So you began with 24 strands, right? Because each one had 6. It was a 6-ply thread for blue, red, purple, and linen. You've added another strand of gold into each one of those minim for a total of 28. So now you see how the big Kahuna were kushenhein. Remember the Gemara earlier in the context of the Kalayim discussion told us that the big Kahuna were kushen, were made of thick weave material and didn't have the ability to be machamim, Rashi said. So it's almost like yarn, these thick threads which had lots of these air holes. So it provided very little insulation. Didn't have the ability to be machamim, the person wearing them. Continues the Gemara on the topic of Big Day Kahuna. Amar Rechava Amar Yehuda Hamakareya Big Day Kahuna, like if one should tear Big Day Kahuna, he gets malchus. Shenama lo yikareya. Pasuk says you meant to reinforce the hem, the neck hole of the meal, so that it doesn't tear. We learn from here you're not allowed to tear Big Day Kahuna. It's a lav. It generates malchus. Maskeflar of Achabar Yaakov. How do you know? Perhaps the pasuk is simply saying like this: form a proper hem around the neck hole of the meal, reinforce it properly, so it doesn't tear on its own. To keep it intact, to keep it in good shape, but doesn't necessarily mean if one should decide to tear it, it gets malchus. Miksiv shalei korea. The Torah use it as a reason. Reinforce it so that it doesn't get torn. Pasuk says, "Lo yikareya." It shouldn't be torn. Don't tear it. Apparently, it's an isser, as Rambam explains. It's a bezoyin to be mekareya Big Day Kahuna. Amar Belazar. Likewise, hamaziach es achoshen mi'ala ephod. If one separates the choshen from the ephod, it's meant to be tied onto the ephod. If one separates it, v'hameser badi aron. If one removes the poles from beside the aron, loika. Here as well, there's malchus. Shenema lo yizach lo yasuru. The Choshen are not meant to be separated. The Badim are not meant to be removed. Once again, Maskef Lo Rav Bar Yaakov. How do you know? V'dilma. Hachikam Rachmana. Torah is simply telling you, Chadkinu, tighten them, fasten them, Ve'avdinu shaper, and place them properly in place. The Choshen tied to the ephod, the bottom into the rings around the Aron. Fasten them properly, Kedei Shelo Yizach V'lo Yisuru, so they don't get separate, they don't get removed. But should one decide to do so, perhaps there's no malchus. Once again, the same teretz, Miksiv Shelo Yizach V'Shelo Yisuru. So does the Torah then say, tie it on properly, place it into the rings properly, so that they don't get separated or removed? Torah says, V'lo yizach ha'choshen al ephod. Don't separate it. Lo yasuru mimenu. The bottom are not meant to be taken out. So it generates a love. Rabbi Yisrael Chanina Rami, he had a steer between two psukim. On the one hand, we have ksiv v'tabois ha'oren, you are bottom, lo yasuru mimenu. The bottom meant to be inserted into the rings, not meant to be removed. Which sounds like it's meant to be fixed in its place. It shouldn't budge. It shouldn't slide. Then we have a pasuk ksiv v'huva is bada v'tabois. The bada meant to be inserted into the tabois, which sounds like you put it in, you take it out. Okay, so how do we work out these psukim? We have a compromise. Misparken, they slide around veinishmata, but they don't slide out completely. So there's some leeway in there. Rashi explains that the tips of the bottom were actually thick, so I kept them in the ring. So they were meant to be placed there permanently, not meant to be taken out. But they're allowed to move around, to slide back and forth. Tani nami hachi, of a brayso in support of this pshat. The pasuk says, "B'tabo is ha'oren yu abad." Yochel lo yuzazim kaimen. Perhaps they're meant to stay in place and not budge at all. You take them in, you take them out. If only from this pasuk, perhaps you can take it in and out of the tabois. No, they're meant to remain in position. So which one is it? Stay in position or take it in and out? How does this work? Misparken, yeah, they can move around, veinishmatan, but not meant to be removed entirely. Omar Rabbi Bar Chama Bar Chanina, my dichsiv atze shitim oimdim. When the pasuk describes the Mishkan and the kroshim meant for the Mishkan, we have vosisas akroshim la Mishkan. So you meant to make these beams, these wooden beams for the Mishkan. Atze shitim oimdim. What does that mean? Oimdim, standing up. She'oimdim derech deilasim. They're meant to be positioned standing up, vertically, in the same angle as when they grow on the tree. So really there are two ways you can cut lumber off a tree. If you have a real wide tree, you can perhaps cut beams sideways also. And then, when you pick up the beams vertically, they're not going to be standing in the same way, in the same angle as they grew on the tree. Rather, the Torah requires that the beams should be oimdin derech deilasim. So you meant to cut them off the tree lengthwise, and then position them around the Mishkan in the same way as when they were growing on the tree. In fact, the Gemara in Sukkah learns from this pasuk as well to halachos of lulav ve'esrog. He meant to shake the lulav and esrog derech deilasim, vertically, upward, the way it grows on a tree. Interesting shaila. Let's say somebody is down in Australia and he's going to shake a lulav which grew up on the other side of the world. So he's going to be shaking it in the opposite direction than it grew on the tree. Interesting shaila. Of course, it's all relative to the person's position. It grows upward and he's standing. Wherever he is, he's going to hold it upward. That's called derech deilasim. So that's one pshat. Dover achar oimdim. Another pshat. Oimdim means shemamidin es sipuyim. So Rashi has two pshatim. We know that the kroshim were actually gold plated, but they weren't painted gold. They made these gold plates, and then affixed them to the wooden boards. So the kroshim support the tzipuyim because the pegs were affixed into the wood, and that's what supported the gold plates. Another pshat Rashi says, "Shelo yisliu," they didn't get wormy. V'lo nafal tzipuyan, which case the tzipuy, the plating remained intact. Tosfos has another angle on things. He says the Gemara is referring to a halachic issue here. You see, generally speaking, a wooden kli which is plated, gold plated, metal plated, is treated like a kli mateches regarding tefillah, etc., regarding tumah, except in this case where the Torah considers the wood element of the keresh to be of primary importance. It's considered like a mamid, that's the main element. Shemamid as sipui, the wood is holding up the plate. So we consider as a wooden kli, so to speak, despite the fact that the surface is metal, and that's what's visible, and that's what's used. But the Torah considers this to be ate shitim, gives more importance to the wood than to the gold. And we consider it like a kli eitz regarding other halachas. Tosfos says it applies here, and applies to the shulchan as well, where the Torah refers to it as a shulchan ate shitim, so despite the fact that it's gold plated, we don't treat it like a kli mateches, rather like a kli eitz. So that's Tosfos' angle on things. Davar achar, another pshat in the word oimdim, is as follows: the ate shitim, the kroshim, are eternal. Shema toima, perhaps you'll say, avad sivron, when they were hidden, when they went to build the Beis Hamikdash, they were going is the kroshim. Perhaps you'll think, avad sivron, their hope is lost. Ubatal sikuyan, and the anticipation for their return is no longer relevant. Tamaloima oimdim, no, they're eternal. Sha'oimdim la'olam u'olam, they stand forever. Farshim explain, apparently, when the Beis Hamikdash will be rebuilt, there will be a function, there will be a purpose for these kroshim. So once they're there, they're eternal. They'll come back, and we'll make good use of them. Amar Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, my dechsiv es bigdei hasrad l'sharis b'kodesh. When Torah describes the bigdei kahuna, it attaches the word srad to it, bigdei hasrad. And Rashi on the bottom line says, sarad loshin sarid, a remnant, a survivor. What does this mean? Why is the Torah referring to bigdei kahuna in this manner? Ilmala bigdei kahuna, if not for the effect, the positive effect of the bigdei kahuna, which enable us to do the avodim, karbonis, and get kapara, le'nishtayir misayin ein shel Yisrael. So an Ein Shel Yisrael is a euphemism. The enemies of Israel, it's referring to Klal Yisrael. Le'nishtayir misayin ein shel Yisrael, sar the pot. There'll be nobody left from Klal Yisrael. No remnant, no survivor. Says Rashi on the top line, ilmali bigdei kahuna shal yedei and makrivina karbonis hamerchapon Yisrael. This saves us from tragedy. Now, other Rishonim learn that the bigdei kahuna themselves have the power of kapara, separate from the fact that they enable karbonis to be brought. Gemara's elsewhere in Zvachim and Erechim speak about the power of bigdei kahuna, for instance, in Ilv, Mechapon, Lashon Hara, etc. In fact, Rabbeinu Eliyakim, one of the Rishonim, says even Bizman Hazeh, the bigdei kahuna benefit us, they're mechaper us. They're sitting somewhere in Rome, he says. So we have the power of the bigdei kahuna, which protect us. Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Omar, he quoted a devei Rabbi Shimon or Rabbi Shmuel, a brisa learned in the Beis Medrash of Rabbi Shmuel. Tana, so we learned the brisa. Why are they called bigdei srad? Begadim shegardin oisan kavriyasan. You see, unlike your typical article of clothing, which is made of parts, they take a pattern, they cut various parts, and then sew them together. The bigdei kahuna were custom made and woven as one unit. It was a big chachma to do it. They had to weave it as one unit. Begadim shegurdin oisam kibriyasan. Miklin. These are begadim which are taken off, cut off. Kibriyasan, intact as is. As a full article of clothing, completed beged. Miklin. From the loom, from the weaving machine. But they left something over. Umisardin men klum. So Big Dasra is referring to something that was left over. There's something unfinished there. Mai, what is it referring to? Rish Lakish Amar Elu Maasi Machat. Some part of it was added on later. Was attached with a machat, with a needle. They sewed it on. Meisivei. Big Kahuna Ein Oisen Oisen Maasi Machat. You never use a machat by Big Kahuna. You don't sew anything. Elu Maasi Eirik is completely woven. Shenama Maasi Eirik. So it took great expertise. They still actually custom weave every beged to the size of the kohen. So it was a three-dimensional product here. It was a full weave, and it was done. There's no adding, alterations. So what do we mean? Sorry, they added the machat. Amar Abaye, referring to the sleeves. So the entire begadim were custom made as a unit. But the sleeve portion was left separately. That was woven separately and then sewn onto the shirt. Was woven separately, and then sewed onto the beged. Umagas, and actually these sleeves were so long, it reached where? Ad pieces hayad, until the kohen's palm. Amar Rechava, Amar Yehuda, Shalosh Aroinos Asher B'Tzalel. Torah tells us that the urn which contained the luchos was gold plated as well. Once again, we're not speaking about painting it gold. Rather, it was plated. And he learns that Betzalel fashioned 3 separate containers, 3 separate boxes. And Tzoyshalates. The middle one, the main one, was a wooden box. Tisha. How high was it? 9 tfachim. An am and a half, each am being 6 tfachim. So it was 9 tfachim high. That was the middle wooden one. Pnimi shel zav shmoina. There was an inner box made of gold. Right? The urn had to be plated on the inside and the out. So we had a smaller sized box, the inner box, the gold box, 8 tfachim high. Why only 8 tfachim? Because when we speak about the urn shel eitz being 9 tfachim high, we're referring to the exterior dimension of that box. But the actual shulayim, the bottom surface of that box, was a tefach thick. So the inner cavity inside that wooden box was only 8 amas high. And that was the size of the inner golden box. Chitzain shel zav asara mashu. Now the outer, the exterior gold box was how tall? 10 tfachim and a bit. Why 10 tfachim and a bit? Because it had to cover everything. So the mashu is referring to the bottom layer, the bottom surface, the thickness of the actual bottom of that exterior box was only a mashu, just a bit. Then we have 9 going up to cover the wooden box, which was 9 tefachim high. Then an additional tefach beyond that. What for? Because there was a kapiris, a thick lid placed on top of the urn, made of wood, a tefach thick. So the outer gold box had to extend upward another tefach to cover the sides of that lid, of that kapiris. So you have a mashul for the bottom surface, 9 to cover the orange shalates, another tefach to cover the side of the kapiris. V'atanya achados or mashul. A brisa which tells us that the outer golden box was 11 and a bit. How's that? Like Kasha, the answer is, it all depends how thick the bottom surface of that outer golden box was. Ha Commander Omar, yesh b'avi tefach. This brisa, which says 11 and a bit, holds that the bottom surface of that outer golden box was a tefach thick. It wasn't just a mashu on bottom. So you have a tefach for that. Another 9 to cover the vertical surface of the wooden box. Another tefach beyond that to cover the kaparas. So it's 1, 9 plus 1, and then another mashu on top. What for? We're going to see in a second. Whereas the other brisa, which speaks about 10 and a bit, held that the bottom surface of that outer golden box was not a tefach thick, it was just a mashu thick. So all you need is 10 and a bit. You need a little bit for the bottom surface, the shulayim of that outer golden box. 9 to cover the side of the aron shel eitz, another tefach to cover the side of the lid. Now, that gets us 10 and a bit. Why does the other brisa say 11 and a bit? Umay mashu, what's that added mashu? Zeir. You know, the aron had a little crown around the perimeter of the top of the aron. So that's the mashu described here. So you need 11 and a bit to cover that. So once again, we have two shittas. Either 11 and a bit, and that was because the bottom surface of the outer golden box was a tefach. That's 1. Another 9 to cover the aron shel eitz. Another 1 to cover the side of the lid. Another mashu for the zer. So it's 11 and a bit. The other brisa says 10 and a bit. But truthfully speaking, the Farshim explain, it was really 10 and 2 bits, if you want to include the zer. So he didn't mention the zer, so he didn't add that, but really, it's 10 and 2 bits. How's that? You have a mashu for the bottom. You held that the bottom surface is only a mashu in thickness. You have a mashu on top for the zer, and then 10 to cover the aron shel eitz plus the side of the kaparas. So it's 10 plus 2 mashus. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, while on the topic of the zer, actually there were 3 of them in the Beis HaMikdash. Shloisha zeirim him. 3 crowns found on the Klei HaMikdash. Shel Mizbeach, 1 on top of the Mizbeach HaPnimi, Mizbeach HaZav, Vishal Aron, 1 surrounding the Aron, as we just mentioned, Vishal Shulchan, 1 on top of the Shulchan. Now each one represented a different perspective of royalty, of malchus. The zer was like a crown. So each one represented a different aspect of malchus. Shel Mizbeach, the one around the Mizbeach, that resembles Keser Kahuna. Who got that? Zocha Aaron v'notli. Aaron was Zocha. He received that for himself and his descendants. Shel Shulchan, the crown around the Shulchan, which represents malchus, sustenance, providing. Zocha David v'notli. That was given to David HaMelech. Shel Aron, the crown around the Aron, which contained the Torah. And that's available for anybody to take. Anybody could earn that Keser Torah. Adai munachu. It's still lying around. It's available. Whoever wishes could come and take that. Shema Toimar Pachasu. If that's the case, you'll say, well, little demand. Perhaps it's indicative of its lower value. Perhaps it's less valuable than the other ones. This is available for all to take. Says the Gemara, just the opposite. Talmud Leimar. The pasuk in Mishlei says, "Bi mulachim yimlach." Torah says, "I appoint kings." The Torah is the source of all power, all prominence, and all chashivas. It's an extension of Hashem, so to speak, in the world, and that's the source of all malucha, of all position, of all importance, of all things that are significant. So Torah is the source of all the other malchias, of all the other ksarim. So Keser Torah stands higher than Keser Kahuna and Keser Malchus. And this corresponds, the Mashal says, to the 3 Ksarim found in Pirkei Avos: Keser Torah, Keser Kahuna, Keser Malchus. As we know that Keser Torah stands higher, even a Mamzer, who's a Talmud Chacham, is considered to have a higher value, stands higher in stature than even a Kohen Gadol who's an Amaretz. So it's really flies in the face of the basic principle of the market economy, which says that high demand denotes higher value. Here we see just the opposite. Torah is the most unappreciated, undervalued commodity. And really, it's the most valuable. That was the story with Unclus and his uncle. He told him, go find things which are valuable and undervalued, underrated, cheap. And he says, okay, I'm going to go look around, and what did he find? Torah mitzvahs. Most valuable thing in the world, and unappreciated. It's cheap, easy to acquire. And he was in his guy, became a Yid. Rabbi Yehuda had a steer. Ksiv zar. The word zer is spelled zayin resh. Zar. A stranger. Vikarinan zer. But it's read zer. A crown. A kesser. Which one is it? Is it something strange to a person? Disconnected? Or is it something very much connected to the person? Well, it depends how we approach Torah. Zacha. If he learns Torah with the proper attitude, to be Makayim the Torah, to lead a Torah lifestyle, Nasas lezer. And indeed, the Torah becomes a zer, a crown around this fellow. He absorbs the Torah, becomes part of him. Lo zacha. But if he's not zeicha, doesn't have the proper attitude when he learns Torah, he's pursuing a personal agenda. He's going to misuse the Torah. He's not planning on conducting himself as it says in the Torah. Zora himenu. Indeed, it's a stranger to him. Explains Rashi. So we have the right column of Rashi. So 4 lines from the bottom. It says Rashi, Zocha l'umad l'shmo l'kaima, then it's good. Otherwise, Zora. Mishtakachas himenu. Torah is a stranger to him. He's just going to forget it. He's not going to absorb the Torah. It's not going to become part of him. It's going to slide away. Continues the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda and Rami Yarastira. One pasuk says, Ksiv vasiselacha oren eitz. Hashem instructs Moshe to make the oren eitz. What actually happened? Ksiv va'asu oren ateshitim. They all did it for him. He didn't end up doing it. Mikan, we learn from here, l'talmid chacham shebnei iroi mitzuva nasle melachte. His fellow community members are meant to do his work for him. They're meant to provide the Talmud Chacham with parnasa, so that he's able to sit and learn. The pasuk describes the aron as being coated with gold, inside and out. Once again, we draw a parallel to a Talmud Chacham. What's the proper approach to learning Torah? You're meant to be internally consistent. You're meant to be a man of integrity, inside and out. Amar Rava, kol Talmud Chacham she'en teicha kibar. Talmud Chacham whose pnimius, whose character is inconsistent with the way he presents himself, in a Talmud Chacham. It's not a true Talmud Chacham. So internally, he's meant to match the way he presents himself, and that's a true Talmud Chacham. Abaye v'tema Rabba Bar Ula says like this: Nikra Nisav. Not only isn't he a Talmud Chacham, he's actually called Nisav, domination, repulsive. Shenamar Av ki Nisav v'nelach. Who is this Nisav v'nelach? Ish, a fellow who's shoyse kemayim avla. He drinks mayim, the water of Torah, avla, and is internally crooked. He's undeserving of the Torah. He's going to get the Torah and misuse the Torah for personal agenda. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar B'nei Nisa. Ma'idich Siv. What does the pasuk mean when it says Lama zeh mechir bi'ad ksil liknes chachma? Why is this item being sold to the foolish person to be kaina chachma v'leiv ayin? And he doesn't have a heart. He's not a fitting. He's not a deserving a kli. He doesn't have what to place the Torah. He doesn't have a heart for it. What does that mean? Oilahem l'soin ein shamid chachamim. Once again, soin ein is a euphemism. Woe to the Talmid Chachamim she'oiskim b'Torah. They're involved in Torah, yeah, but their midas aren't really up to par. Ve'ein behen yirah shamayim. They don't have yirah shamayim. They don't have where to place the Torah. So you learn and learn, but if you're not internally worked through, if your character is not really developed properly, it's a pity. It's a pity on your Torah. Machruz Rabbi Yanai, as Rabbi Yanai declared, Chaval, a pity. Al delefle darta, on this fellow who has no Darta Rashi says a chotzer. He has no courtyard, meaning he has no storage place for the Torah. He has nowhere to put it. V'tara l'darti of it. And he goes ahead and he creates a tara, a gateway, l'darte for his chotzer, which he doesn't have. So Torah is a gateway. It enables a person to connect to Hashem, but if he's not internally worked through, he hadn't perfected his character traits, he's not able to connect to Hashem. So he learns and learns to create that connection, but he never arrives. So Torah is like raw energy with nowhere to place it. Amalu Rava turned to the Rabban, he said, Matusa, Minaych, I ask you, I beg of you, Lo tirson tarti Gehenim. Don't inherit a double portion of Gehenim. What does this mean? Let's go to Rashi. So we have the left column of Rashi. It would be 5 lines from the top. Don't be Yerush tarti Gehenim. You're going to toil and work so hard to learn Torah, but you're not really planning on fulfilling the Torah. You're not planning on perfecting your character traits to connect to the Torah. And what happens then? You're not really zeichet to Torah. When you pass away, you're not going to have the Gan Eden. You'll have Gehenim there. And throughout your lifetime, you didn't enjoy this world. Here you're busy, you're forcing yourself to learn. And at the end of the day, you're not going to be zeichet to Olam Haba. You get Gehenim here, there, and Gehenim in this world. Kareach, mekan, bold on both sides. So please, don't. Be careful. Go ahead and learn Torah with the proper perspective, to be zeichet to Olam Haba. And then, guess what? You'll enjoy this world as well. Many stories with Gedolim who try to explain this Nakuda, how a person is immersed in spirituality, doesn't lose out. You get Gan Eden in the world to come, and this world's experience is greatly enhanced as well. So all the worldly pleasures that a person engages in, if he's focused on Ruchnis, his Kevei Itim, etc., then not only is he going to enjoy the Ruchnis aspect of this world, but everything else as well. All the other experiences have now gotten a spiritual dimension to them. They're part of a higher calling. They're serving a higher purpose. They're more meaningful. And he'll simply enjoy it much better. So this world will be more enjoyable as well. So then you'll have double portion. Gan Eden there, and Gan Eden in this world as well. As opposed to being Yerush, 2 portions of Gehenna. So make sure you enjoy Torah. Do it l'shem shemayim. Do it to connect to Hashem. Be internally consistent with your pursuit of the external pursuit of Torah, in which case it's going to be a spiritual experience in this world as well as the next. What does the pasuk mean? That this is the Torah that Moshe placed. You could have said Asher Li made Moshe. Why? Some. With Darshan, the word some is referring to a potion, like a medicine. Zocha, if he was Zocha, he learns Torah with the proper attitude. Nasas le samchaim. Torah serves him as a potion of life. It energizes him. It gives him spiritual life. It connects him to Hashem. However, lo zocha, if he doesn't have the right attitude when he learns Torah, he's not internally consistent with the limud Torah that he's engaged in, nas le samisa, then it has an opposite effect, a destructive effect. The Torah being highest form of the highest source of energy that one can tap into, it turns into raw energy, which can send them in all directions. In which case, it might lead him to pervert the Torah, misapply the Torah. It becomes samisa. V'haino damarav. Exactly as Rava said, du uman is like a craftsman. If one approaches Torah like a craftsman, engages in it, is obsessed with it, connects to it, tries to absorb it into a system, samadachaya, then it's a portion of life. But a person doesn't have that attitude. He's not du'uma, he's just learning, he's forcing himself to learn, he has an agenda. He's got things to do with the Torah. He's going to misconstrue the Torah, samadamais. Then it turns into a portion of misa, like a poison. Now, all the Rishonim ask. See, Rava himself, in Maseches Pesachim, tells us that not only is a person meant to learn Lishma, really L'Shem Shemayim, to connect to Hashem, even Shalai Lishma is fine. Meant to start off life, Shalai Lishma. So you have some sort of other motive to earn covered money. You meant to start like that, and eventually you'll rise up the ranks, and hopefully achieve the higher Madrega Lishma. So why is it that throughout this sugya, and most recently we have Rava, negating this fellow who's learning Torah without the highest kavanas, without the most lofty intentions? What's wrong with that? Shalai Lishma, you meant to do Torah, even Shalai Lishma. So all the Mepharshim say the same thing. There are different levels of Shalai Lishma. Of course, we don't expect a person, when he starts off, to have the highest intentions, the Shema, to be davek to Hashem when he learns Torah. There are other factors at play as well. That's fine. Here we're speaking about misconstruing the Torah. One who approaches Limud Torah with the intent of misapplying the Torah. For example, is lekanter. He's going to acquire lots of knowledge to disprove his opponent, to use it as a tool in debate. He has a personal agenda in mind. He's going to take the information. He's going to create all kinds of controversial piski halacha as his heart's content. That's the Samad Moisa we're speaking about. That's the potion of death. That's destruction. Because Torah is raw energy. And if it's directed the right direction, it can be amazing. But otherwise, it can totally take a person and throw him off. So that's the point of the Gemara. We're contrasting the person who approaches Torah with the proper perspective as opposed to a person who has an agenda and is going to misconstrue the Torah, in which case it can become a destructive force. Amar B'Shmo Rachmeni, Rabbi Yenissan Rabbi. Rabbi Yenissan had a steer. Ksiv Pikudi Hashem Yisham Misamach Lev. Torah gladdens the heart. Uksiv Imars Hashem Tzerufa. Tzerufa means it purifies him, but Yisurim Gehenim. It's a painful experience. So which one is it? Makes you happy or sad? Well, it depends. Depends on your approach. Zacha, if you do it properly, Misamchasa, it's meant to make you happy. Loi Zacha, but otherwise, Soifasa, becomes a destructive force. Rish Lakish Amar, Yigufa Dikra Nafka. We find this dual capacity within the pasuk itself. Srufa means tziruf, to connect. So Zacha, Soifasa L'chaim, he does it properly, it connects him to life, to the source of life, to Hashem. Loi Zacha, but otherwise, Soifasa L'misa, it has the opposite destructive effect. See, Torah is like an engine. It's like an 18-wheeler. It's energy. And be careful where you take that 18-wheeler. So if you're going in the right direction, it's amazing. But otherwise, it could be destructive. The pasuk says, Yiras Hashem Tahira Imedas Lad. What does this mean? Amar B'chanina, Zehaloy Torah B'tahara. One who learns Torah in a state of Tahara. Mahi, what does this mean? Noise Isha first gets married. V'achar kach loy Torah. Pasuk says, Eidus Hashem Ne'amana. Torah is reliable. Something to trust. What does that mean? Amar B'chiba Abba. Ne'amana hi l'hayid b'leim de'ah. Torah is to be trusted. Torah will testify l'olam haba. You learned me. So Torah will be made on those that learned her and those that didn't. Back to the Big Day Kahuna. When they made the Mishkan, the pasuk describes the way they fashioned the material. Maaseh roikem, maaseh chosh. What does this mean? Amar Belazar, sheroikmin b'makom shechosh. First they planned. They made a little sketch on the material. That's maaseh chosh. Right? There was a machshava, a plan, and then they went ahead and they did roikim. They embroidered the shape, the form, the design using a needle. We have another pshat, Tana Mishmeder Mechemya. These things are describing two different types of design. Roikim Maseh Machat. Roikim was the most simple form of designing, using a needle. Parts of Echad, which resulted in only one form being produced. So you use a needle and go from side to side, and you have the same form on both sides of the material. As opposed to Choshev, which is a more advanced method of design, Maseh Erik. that was within the weave itself. They would weave some sort of design within the weave, which resulted in a double form. You can have a eagle on one side of the material, a lion on the other, because it was done within the weave itself, which was orchestrated in that manner. Let's go back to the Mishnah. Be'elu nish'olan b'urim v'tumim. And the Kohen Gadol would wear all 8 begadim. That enabled whoever need to ask the Urim v'tumim, enabled him to approach and ask the Urim v'tumim. Ki asr Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael. Omar, he said as follows: Begadim she'Kohen Gadol mishamash ben, the same 8 begadim which the Kohen Gadol wore during Avodah, Mushoch Mochama mishamash ben. Mushoch Mochama, who was the one that conducted the Kohen in charge of the Milchama, he would prepare Klal Yisrael for war. So it was a type of Kohen Gadol. So he as well needs to wear the 8 begadim if he chooses to do avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. How do we know that? Shenemar ubigdei hakodesh asher la'aron, the 8 begadim attributed to Aaron HaKohen, you lebanav achrav, are meant to be worn by his sons after him. Achrav is an extra pasuk, extra word, to tell us even the Mishoch Mocham is included in this. Lemi sheba b'gdula achrav, anyone of his descendants, which will occupy a position of prominence, of Gdula, including this type of Kohen Gadol, the Mashuach Mochama, who needs to wear these 8 begadim when he chooses to do the Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, let's review the main points of today's daf. We discussed the makeup of the Kuna. We discussed that there are 3 different types of malchus applied regarding the begadim and the kelim. If one tears bigdei kuna, if one separates the choshen from the ephod or removes the badei ha'aron. The pasuk says ate shitim aimdim. One pshat is derek dei lasam, meant to be upright, the way they grow. One pshat is mamidin tzipuyan, they support the gold plate, and they're aimdim lo'olam u'lo'olamim. We learned about the 3 containers fashioned by Betzalel, gold, wood, gold. We learned about the 3 crowns found in Beis Hamikdash, representing Keser, Kuhuna, Keser Malchus, and Keser Torah, which is above all of them. We learned about the Torah, which has the ability to be a Sam Chaim, or Chas v'Shalom a Sam Mavis. And we concluded with the Mashuach Mochama, who wears 8 begadim during Avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. Kol tov to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.